Are you reading from Bhagavad Gita? No. Is your wife reading from Bhagavad Gita?
She does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know where?
I don't know.
She's gone.
Come, did you there's a okay, you come to
Where are you reading from these days?
I haven't read that in a while, but you see some bookmarks there as and when I go.
I don't see bookmarks.
But there are some between
There's
us.
some. Oh. So you want to pick a verse?
One from 9th chapter.
9th chapter. Anyone, right? Anyone. You have a favorite verse from the 9th chapter? No? Well, I just opened to 9:13 Bhagavad Gita.
That's what I was thinking.
The Mahatma verse. Familiar with that one? Mahatmanastamam partha, Daivam prakritimashvata. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Mahatmanastamam partha.
Mahatmanastamam partha.
Daivim prakritimashvata.
Daivim prakritimashvata.
Janjananya manaso.
Janjananya manaso.
Yatva bhutadimabhyayam.
Yatva bhutadimabhyayam.
Mahatmanastamam partha.
Mahatmanastamam partha.
Devim prakritimashvata.
Devim prakritimashvata.
Janjananya manaso.
Janjananya manaso.
Yatva bhutadimabhyayam.
Yatva bhutadimabhyayam.
Mahatmanaha.
Mahatmanaha.
Great souls.
The great souls.
To. But.
Mam.
Unto me.
Unto me.
Partha. O son of Pritha.
O son of Pritha.
Daivim.
Divine.
Prakritim. Nature. Ashrita. Having taken shelter of. Bhajanti. Render service. Ananya manasa. Without deviation of the mind. Yatva. Knowing. Bhuta. Of creation. Adim. The origin. Avyayam. Inexhaustible. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Report by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this effected? That is explained in the 7th chapter, one who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of the material nature, is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So, when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul, Mahatma. Paragraph. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, for he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma, or great soul, develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted to the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna. In Krishna consciousness, they are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Often Prabhupada will refer to this verse, not specifically speaking about Mahatma Gandhi, but categorically included under those who call themselves Mahatma or our great soul, or others call them Mahatma. But what's the qualification? Not a rubber stamp, it's the indication that is given in Bhagavad Gita. But we're hearing, let's go through the logic of what he's presenting. The first consideration is that the Mahatma is one who is situated in Daivi Prakriti. And Daivi Prakriti means in opposition to the material energy or Mahamaya, illusory potency. And we're marginal. This is explained. Marginal means, although of the spiritual nature, we can be influenced this way or that way, depending upon where consciousness is directed, this way or that way. So then, in verse from chapter 7, Prabhupada is saying, it's already explained, how does one come to that position of being within the divine nature? Chapter 7. doesn't use the word Mahatma. Dehi Yeshu Gunamai Mamaya Dharatya Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. Control nature is very difficult to overcome, but those who surrender to me can easily cross beyond it, and cross beyond it means within the spiritual nature. Daily Prakriti. So that's how one gets there, and then that the additional point that's made, see, Prabhupada says this is preliminary, one needs the assistance of one who's already Mahatma, or one who's already in Devi Prakriti, which makes sense. You're going to be, if you have the potential of being a conductor of electricity, or a wire has the potential of being a conductor of electricity, has to come in contact with electricity. Then it can conduct electricity. Without contact with electricity, a conductor remains a potential conductor of electricity. That's all. But the act of willful submission to Krishna is induced by, or awakened by, or restored, rejuvenated by the association of those who are doing that. Those who are influenced by the internal potency, they can influence others by the internal potency. A conductor of electricity can carry electricity to another potential conductor of electricity. Very simple. Still, both may be marginal. But one is carrying the spiritual energy, or being influenced by or conducted by the spiritual energy. That's how one becomes a Mahatma, or the proper definition of Mahatma. And that's a potential for anyone. In other words, there's this humorous or sad conception that some souls are big and some souls are small. And the big ones are the Mahatmas. And the small ones are the, whatever the other, the regular Mahatmas. So if you become a Mahatma, you become a big soul. It's a mistake. Among many mistaken ideas. The previous verse is a contrasting verse. If those who never take shelter, they never come to the spiritual position. Those who are bewildered and attracted by demoniac and atheistic views, in that condition, their hope for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Mogasha, Moga Karmano, Moga Jnana, Vichetasaha. Rakshasim Asarim Shaiva. Very strong language. Rakshasim Asarim Shaiva. Prakritim Mohinim Shritaha. They're bewildered by having taken shelter of this illusory potency. Illusory potency is not nice. It's not a nice master. and once under the care of illusory potency, it's really hard to get free. Because of conditioned tendency, not because it's attractive, but it appears to be attractive. And because it appears to be attractive, people keep trying. It's very clever. Very powerful. Very bewildering. And yet try to take a living entity out of that unfortunate, miserable condition. They're conditioned, so it's very difficult. Prabhupada uses the example, if you try out of compassion, take a worm from a pile of stool and separate the worm from the stool, and look at the pile of stool and go wiggle back into the pile of stool. Just yummy, warm. The hog, he would like this, because there's a Bhagavatam verse that speaks of hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, materialistic civilization. The first one on the list is hogs. So for us, the life of a hog is abominable. I remember one time having read this, that description in the Bhagavatam, and then going for a walk around Vrindavan, and it had been at a time when there was some rain, so this big accumulation of water in a few low places, and there were some hogs that they were like wiggling their body in this filthy, muddy water, and smiling and wagging their tail, and they were in pig heaven, wallowing in a filthy place. And the little piglets learning from the big ones how to do it, and that's their happiness. For us, it's abominable and searching for stool. That's their, when one receives a body, then according to the body one receives, there's a certain inclination. The soul in the body of the king thinks happiness is kingly life, and the happiness in the body of a dog is bark and be territorial and chew on bones. And it's just, you get a body and the conditioning, and when do we not have a body? You go from one body to the next body, and so it's self-perpetuating. And whichever one we have, we're attached to. And if one becomes so frustrated that one thinks of suicide, the embodiment problem isn't solved, because the desires are not only along with the body, but there's then the subtle body. It's the subtle body that has the desires. So the gross body is the instrument to fulfill those desires, but if the gross body is taken away, then it's even worse, because there's no gross body to try to fulfill that desire from. So it's horrible suffering. Ghostly bodies, ghostly conditions. So therefore the ghost wants to take over the body of another so they can try to act out their desires. So when somebody is asleep, or when somebody is intoxicated, or when somebody is depressed or sad, or in any condition where consciousness is down, that's where ghosts have the greater opportunity to inhabit. try to possess the body of another. And then because they want to fulfill their desires. And the instrument of a body is needed to, but the body was destroyed. So if it's not just the gross body but the subtle body, what do you do about the subtle body? The gross body can be engaged in practical activity. Will be engaged in practical activity anyway, or sometimes, according to the modes of nature. Work is performed. So in this Mahatma verse, Mahatmanas mam partha daivim karpatam ashrita bhajanti ananya manaso. Ananya manaso. Manaso refers to the mind. Mana. Ananya manaso. The mind isn't deviated from Krishna. Manana. The mind is not deviated from Krishna. And interestingly, Prabhupada in the translation doesn't say that the mind undeviatingly absorbed in me. He says one is undeviatingly engaged in devotional service. Ananya. Anya means other and ananya means no other. Ananya manasa. Mind absorbed in me. That's where whatever it is that the mind is absorbed in, this is now a japa lesson, Mahamantra chanting lesson. Whatever the mind is absorbed in, that's where you're going to go, isn't it? It's true at the time of death, and it's true during life. Now behind what the mind is absorbed in is we're making some choices, but we'll make some choices according to where the mind is absorbed in. You know, there's this word, abhinivesh. Abhinivesh means a general propensity towards. So there's a distinction between the senses having a specific sense object of attraction and abhinivesh, a general propensity towards enjoyment of the senses. So there's this, so specific and general, a specific attraction to a particular, let's say, food item, or something, music, something that's the senses and the sense object. Having the attraction for a certain style of clothing, or a certain car, a certain profession. Then there's a general disposition towards enjoyment. And those conceptions or propensities are carried in the mind. And according to the mind, this is, the guna and karma forces of the mind that want to get the body as an instrument of the subtle sense, the mind. And generally the mind is considered sense number 6 or number 11. Knowledge acquiring working senses 10, and then the mind. Or just the knowledge acquiring senses in the mind 6. And it's the king, it rules. So absorption of the mind in Krishna, that's the purpose of yoga. We understand a lot about bhakti yoga, but I just a little sharing because for practical speaking to people, here in America, and I'm discovering as I travel all around the world, yoga not only is becoming popular, yoga is like an industry. Share this with you. In China, it's all over the place. There's high end and low end, but so many yoga studios. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Very, 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 very popular yoga. And most people are attracted because health, and they feel good. You know, they don't know something more than that. Some people know that there's something more than that. But generally, even the yoga teachers don't know something more than that. And for them, it's a business. Way to make a good living. And of course, there's different gradations of people that are yoga students and yoga teachers. And they have their modes of nature too. But one of the things that's very helpful, this is like just some tips in speaking to Western people or people that, anyone that's not from India, and for that matter, people even from India, like the question last night about how to explain bhakti. So you can start with the word yoga. It's connected to the first. You start with the word yoga, and when people hear the word yoga, it's asanas. The mind that's yoga. And then, for some that practice yoga, they learn also pranayama. And then they don't know that that's part of an eightfold yoga system. Or if some of them know, they don't really know. They say they know, but they don't really know. There are some yoga studios, they call it Ashtanga Yoga. Ask them what it is. They don't know. They don't know. So when they hear, it's surprising. And so, yama and niyama, they don't hear about it at all. And then asana and pranayama. Then the next one, number 5, pratyahara. Never heard of it before. Pratyahara means withdraw consciousness being extended through the senses and bring it within, consolidate within. Like with Mantra Bhishma did when the sun began moving in the northern direction. Pratyahara. That's number 5. And then the remaining 3 is stages of meditation. Dhyan, dharana, and total absorption, samadhi. Meditation, and meditation. The goal is fixing the mind on the Supreme. Realization of Paramatma in total trance. So it leads to being fixed in the Supreme. It leads to that higher consciousness of fixed in the Supreme. And all of the yoga systems do the same thing. And the topmost of all the yoga systems, described in that same chapter where the Ashtanga yoga system is described, Bhakti is the best. It's the ripened fruit. So, how to explain what bhakti is? It's the ripened fruit of asanas and pranayama. The ripened fruit of yoga. Because that's just, those two. Take the whole of the Vedas. Because the yoga system described in Bhagavad Gita is part of a much bigger work. And the much bigger work, it all has the same objective, higher consciousness, absorption in the Supreme. And the topmost of all of that is bhakti, absorption in the Supreme. And so this Mahatma verse is, absorption in the Supreme comes from not struggling with the material energy, but taking shelter of Krishna, which means taking shelter of the spiritual energy. Daivim prakritim ashrita. And in that Daivim prakritim ashrita space, the mind is fully absorbed in thought of Krishna, the dhyan dharana samadhi. Or for us, because we don't do Ashtanga yoga, it's that we're engaged in primarily the Bhagavad Dharma, the process of hearing and sound vibration. Our bhakti process is sound immersion. And not just mechanical sound immersion, but conscious directing of the soul, which is conscious and consciousness, to the sound vibration. And the sound vibration is none different than the person, none different than the spiritual realm. It's connecting our consciousness right now with the spiritual realm. In the mood of being in service to the Supreme, with the mind is attached to the Supreme. That's bhakti. And when by that one becomes qualified, according to Krishna's standard in Bhagavad Gita, to be a Mahatma. It's an equal opportunity organization. Anyone. Just be a spirit soul. And direct mind and activity to Krishna. Become a Mahatma. Become a sadhu. Become a holy person. Become a purely Krishna conscious person. It includes letting go, not annihilate the body, but letting go of the conditions, tendencies that are stored in the body and within the subtle body, the propensities to this and that. So we forgo those propensities for this and that progressively, based on spiritual strength. The spiritual strength that comes from practice of sadhana bhakti. I'll just share one other little thing and see if there's some discussion. Along with yoga, these are some tips for communicating or sharing Krishna consciousness with Western people. We look around the room. We're not reaching the Western people very effectively. So yoga and meditation yoga is already way up there. And meditation along with yoga is becoming more and more popular. Say it negatively. If we do not make the understanding of mantra meditation in devotion to Krishna known, something else is going to fill that space. Something is already filling that space. And guess what it is? Some kind of impersonal, whether there's an explicit conception or an aversion, same thing that brings us to the material world, raga and dvesha toward Krishna. They just get further, more deeply entrenched in illusory potency. Not necessarily, meaning there's an exception. I'll give one example. One young Indian student, when we had this whole session on the art of mindfulness and ended with chanting japa. He said, my mother taught me, whenever you have an exam, make sure you do your meditation before the exam. Don't, because you have the exam, get too busy to study for the exam that you don't do your meditation. Because when you do your meditation, your mindfulness will be so much stronger. Your ability to share and transmit what you've learned will be so much clearer and sharper and better because your mind will be stronger. So always do your meditation before the exam. It's like utilitarian. Totally. So that person was able to make the transition because of hearing it's important to a form of meditation that leads to something other than selfishness, but it leads to pleasing another through the process of meditation. One gets benefit, but the purpose is not to get the benefit, the purpose is to connect with Krishna. So, something that I recently, so what is it beneficial? This past Saturday, I was in Connecticut, in the University of Bridgeport. There's a lot of, they start their classes Monday, yesterday. And so there was a room full of grad students, all Indian. Maybe 25, 30. And so I was encouraging that japa, have a good semester, chant japa. And the benefits, and describing the benefits and benefits and benefits. So one thing, when I was in China, I was sharing this with the Chinese people because they like meditation. There's a neurologist, a medical doctor from Spain that is now retired, but during his career as a neurologist, he had on the side, had a very serious interest in Sanskrit. Through his studies of Sanskrit, he learned about Sanskrit, the grammar and the technicalities of Sanskrit, but also the benefits of mantra meditation or mantra chanting. So when he retired, he used his neurology, savvy to test brahmanas. He went to India and examined brahmanas through CAT scans and whatever else you do with neurology. to see, to evaluate basically two things. How is their neurological structure of the brain different from the result of that, all that, he called it in his publications, in scientific journals, the Sanskrit effect. It said the awareness lobes of the brain have become much more developed, and the capacity for memory quadruple that of people that don't engage in mantra meditation or Sanskrit recitation, the Sanskrit effect. It's just a power in that sound vibration. So, my dear graduate students, you want to do well every morning. Mantra meditation. And you'll have better memory, you'll do better in advance. And the sound effect is more effective than silent meditation. Medical studies and clinical studies have shown that to be a fact. Science says. But the Vedas say the double collaboration. And there's one other thing that I recently learned within this past week. There's a term in Ayurveda. Well, there's 3 types of Agni within the body. One is in the stomach. I'm sure it's in Chinese medicine too. They just have a different term for it. Agni is in the stomach, and it digests the food. Now, we don't know how the stomach digests food. But we learn if your digestion is strong, you're healthy. If your digestion is weak, there's illness. You're having strong digestion and eating corresponding to your digestion capacity, not too much. Even a little less is better, because at least that much digestion. Too much, it doesn't digest and you get ill. It promotes illness. Better to eat the right amount. Better to eat less than more. So it's good to have strong Agni, strong power of digestion, the things to do that can help that. And it helps health. Then another place where this is Ayurveda, another place where there's fire is the liver. Because the liver has a function like the stomach has a function. And it separates out things once it goes through the digestive system. It goes to the liver. And there's 3 kinds of fire. 3 kinds of fire. I forget what they're called. Remember the third one is Marut. It means it helps move things onto the next situation. Can't remember the other 2. And then there's a thing that's in the region of the heart called Sadhaka Agni. And we all know what sadhana is. And there's emotion. This is Ayurveda, it's not Bhagavad Gita. Ayurveda says there's emotions in the region of the heart, and there's Sadhaka Agni, just like the Agni of the stomach, digests food. We're not conscious of our food digesting, we just eat. And then something happens because of the Agni within the stomach. So similarly, if there's strong sadhana, then this sadhaka agni and this the dhatu, or the root word for yoga, is yuj, yuj, and this yuj dhatu is the root word for yojana. We know of yojana as a measurement of space, but another meaning, in a more common meaning than that, is same as yoga. It's connecting with or linking with or alignment with consciousness and the Supreme. It's the same as yoga, linking with the Supreme. So when there's alignment within the body, the mind, and the heart, this sadhaka, Agni, becomes stronger. Let's just say, for example, there's a young girl, when she was a teenager, she really didn't like chanting japa. She did it because she was told it's important. And because of the relationship, I would sometimes tease her and say, you chant japa like a sack of potatoes. And there's no proper posture, everything is, there's no alignment. And so naturally, it's a miserable experience. This devotee is now initiated. Devotees, they did by their free will choice, they did different things, and so the linking with the Supreme is now happening because of this, and this sadhaka Agni is strong. It has, according to Ayurveda, right from Ayurvedic journals, it has the capacity to digest emotion. And so one can be steady and happy in any circumstance. But that understanding is also there in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 12. It's the disposition from the Ayurvedic perspective is certain. One of the categories of Agni within the body is well developed, and emotions can be managed very easily, very naturally. Mental health, there was this discussion yesterday evening. One of the young girls wanted to have some discussion about depression and mental health. There is a spiritual solution. There's an Ayurvedic solution. There's a Bhagavad Gita solution. Now, doesn't mean that some people don't need mental health professionals. But what mental health professionals aren't going to be able to finalize the problem. Generally, mental health professionals turn to Prozac or some kind of biochemical adjustment that doesn't do anything with the sadhaka Agni. Or from the Ayurvedic perspective, or from the Bhagavad Gita perspective, where there's yojana, there's an alignment of the body, the mind, and the heart. I got one more thing I'll share. In China, I'm being recorded. Can you turn this off? Fundamental things that they have in their teaching is believe in God. Because they can only take people so far. But without some shelter, they can't stay there. They'll have a relapse and go back. There has to be some shelter beyond their own capacity. and beyond the skills and the tools of this addiction, that addiction. Because now there's following Alcoholics Anonymous, there's so many other addictions, anonymous groups. But God has to be in the picture, or it's unsuccessful. Long term. So this sadhaka agni is similar. So this taking shelter of Krishna in devotion to Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita's message has everything. It doesn't give this detailed Ayurveda, but it's there without the detail of Ayurveda. When we take shelter of Krishna in devotion with the intent, not just to feel better or healthy or something, but to actually attain a spiritual destination in our life. It helps alignment, and alignment helps you achieve that destination. It's the most powerful aligning force to go beyond our material conditioning. The material conditioning, again, you get a body, you behave according to the body. You get the body of a dog, and you have to go to dog school. You wag your tail and you bark. You get a cat's body and you run from dogs. So yes. So to go beyond our conditioning, the bondage that holds us to this material world, life after life, birth after birth, endlessly, to end that endless samsara, the bondage to the force of the material nature, conditioning forces of material nature. That's what yoga is for. That is yujate, or yojana, or yuj, or yoga, connecting with the Supreme. This Mahatma verse is indicating what it is, what it looks like, the principle, not detail, exactly what Prabhupada said, just the beginnings. Position needs to be taken. Take shelter of the divine potency. Take shelter of Krishna to get shelter of the divine potency. And be in association with others who are like that. Thus, Krishna consciousness. Exactly what Prabhupada wrote. He created this international society to bring people together and give them the opportunity for loving exchanges. Opportunity doesn't necessarily get properly used. But that's the purpose. Give somebody $1 million. Who knows how they're going to use it? For good purpose or not? Who knows? Depends on the consciousness. So the valuable thing depends on consciousness. But the opportunity is being provided. Bhagavad Gita. Discussion?
It's a sharing one, right?
Yeah.
Then followed up with one question.
Okay, fine.
To your point, being a conductor for electricity, to that analogy, what in my personal case, 10 years back, how it was, how I, this is related to work or how I act in life,
Yeah.
right? And now if I foresee how it is happening now, especially from past few years, right? After I turned out into a consultant where I do on a weekly basis with many white bodies and many. It's all how we influence, how they look up to us. Okay, what's happening with you? How could you manage that kind of a person? So the sharing is, yes, as you are aware, even in Atlanta, people were attracted to either prasadam or for the personal, how we act.
Yeah.
And I've been to Alabama, Dallas now. That's where I'm going now. So they are again connected to those temples. Oh, what you do kind of a thing. So that's, I feel like we should be more and more in mercy, probably how we influence others. Whether it is specifically at the workplace, it is much more than
Specifically which?
at work.
At
When-
work.
Yeah, because as you are stressing white bodies and all. So that's what I realized till now. But the question I have is, to your point, the alignment of heart, mind, and all. We are living life by the expectations. At various stages of expectations, right? Like from the family perspective, from the devotional life perspective, like we serve in temple, serve everywhere. So end of the day, what is our growth path? That's the question.
What is our growth path?
Yeah, the path, what we are heading towards, where we are heading towards. We are living, especially I'm feeling like I'm living by the expectation here. It's not like our own life. We know exactly where we want to go, but we cannot take that path. But we are, okay, I have to fulfill this responsibility at work, at family wise, at devotional wise. We have certain categories of expectations.
Well, I think I understand what you're discussing or looking for some direction on. I don't. Like the question, the response that I gave last night about the chameleon nature of youth at home and with the devotees, and then at school, and then the two different personalities and all that. So, as a solution, same solution for this, and that is, who am I? So, the expectation description you gave, the family expectation, the temple service expectation, the community expectation, doesn't mean that those things are misdirected or wrong. Just what's missing is that introspection that says, who am I, what's really important to me? You said, and I'm not sure I agree, the goal is very clear. I don't think the goal is very clear. I think it's like people that take up yoga for health, or they feel less stress in their body. They feel better. They feel more relaxed. They feel they can, go on the next step or the next week or whatever, and, be better at it. It's all material. It doesn't go to anything beyond material. So these other things may be the expectations that you have of yourself, or that you feel that others have of you, or combination. That's the expectation thing. But I don't think the goal is clear. The goal is progressively realized. If we're doing things, if we're executing our devotional life, or executing our life properly, the goal will become progressively clearer. The goal is, we can say, it's simple, go back to Godhead.
Is it not proportionate to time as well? Like, the goal is...
No, it's not proportionate. Different persons have different propensity, and that's just fine. There has to be sufficient investment in hearing and chanting, but the investment that you give to do these other activities may very well help your hearing and chanting. the purification of the senses, the purification of the modes of nature, the purification of, in all respects, being the enjoyer and the controller and all that stuff. Because the expectation is a lot, I've got to be out there. It's a false ego expectation of myself to myself, or family to myself, or etc. etc. But that's part of the package. That's part of our conditioning package. Body, and the subtle body that awards us by material nature's arrangement, the gross body. That's our package. I use that term. So, I need to purify all that. And the activities of these expectation things that you described, that's not necessarily, it's just wrong or misdirected, it's just incomplete. Because we haven't sufficiently asked the question and acted accordingly. Not just what our values are, to go more deeply than what our values are. I should serve at the temple. I should take care of the needs of family. I should do well in the career. But the purpose of all those things is not necessarily to please Krishna. We can say to please Krishna, but how deep is that inside? And then with that, as that becomes more deep inside, doesn't mean that the activity will change. The consciousness behind the activity potentially can become strengthened. So then that's what the goal is. And we're not clear about the goal. All of what you said is fine except that part. We're not clear about the goal.
Yeah.
We have a short-term picture. I want to feel good. The yoga people, or you, at this particular stage of your spiritual trajectory. But it's not, there's that hinge that says something's missing. It's not like the things are wrong, and I have to readjust everything that I do. Maybe, maybe not. And the consciousness behind has to evolve. That's bhakti. And it's the hearing and chanting, not hearing and chanting to the exclusion of other things, but not the other thing to the exclusion from the chanting. Each according to our nature, and that's primary. I can't compromise the hearing and chanting. That's primary. The other is essential also. It's practical activity. That's what Bhaj means. Practical activity. Senses, sense objects, engaging senses with sense objects. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sekana. Must be. In the different fields according to my nature. Family, career, temple, community, different circles. This is where sankalpa, or the intention behind everything, needs examination and continual refinement. What it is and how I'm applying it. Both. What is my intention? And then how well am I applying it? So continual refinement, realignment, readjustment with what my goal is. It's just like a kid growing up and you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say something. And what does that mean? It's notional at best. And you get something else?
Guru Maharaj, what is the destination of those who are following Ashtanga Yogas, some of the Ashtanga Yogas?
To what degree are they following?
If they are just following asana or yoga, or
Okay,
somebody
They get a
will
human
follow-
form of life. Because there's some element, because it's the system is from Krishna, so there's some submission to Krishna. Now, doesn't necessarily mean in a pious birth in the human form of life, because it depends on all the rest of what they do. Their diet, how they treat nature, and how they treat one another, how they fulfill their dharmic duties, higher and lower. It depends if they contact bhakti through some association, some opportunity, then it becomes, the answer gets modified.
So is this still okay to do yogasanas and meditation to keep the body healthy?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Do in the right consciousness. Small thing. And it's to assist, it's not, that's my means of health. Anything else? Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, in case of meditation on the impersonal form of the Lord, what kind of divine guidance? Do they get any divine guidance, or it's all their mind what it is saying? Or if they get, what kind of guidance do they?
But it's totally rare from the absorption in Brahman. In fact, I'm only aware of two examples: the four Kumaras and Shukadeva Swami. And otherwise, it's the mind. But there must be other examples. But just even take those two. Then it's super soul. The guidance is beyond material affinity into the realm of transcendental light, into the realm of transcendence. Like super soul guidance. Go there. Aruya Krishna Param Padam Tadapatanti Donadra Yushvaram Dayha Manoratena. The general category is the chariot of the mind carrying one, and it's not, the guidance is just the mind is attracted to what appears to be freedom from the bondage of material absorption. And it's Manorata.